So, before getting started, I just want to point out that this is, of course, my opinion, and at the end of the day, this is just a review, not a, I don't know, this isn't some sort of biblical standing of how you should or shouldn't feel. This is just my review of Carving Out the Eyes of God by Goatwhore. So, Carving Out the Eyes of God came out in 2009 and was, or is, Goatwhore's fourth album. This is their second album with Metal Blade, and it's also their second album that they had produced with, or that Eric Rutan produced with them, for them, whatever. This is their second one they did with Eric Rutan. Honestly, though, I'm just going to get straight to the point. I know this is controversial for some people, but I find this to be one of Goatwhore's weakest albums, in all honesty. It To me, it's probably the weakest album in their entire catalog. It's not bad, but for some reason, I just cannot find myself as interested in this album like I have with all the others. Strangely enough, I find something very boring with it, but I don't really know why. Lyrically and instrumentally, it's good. I suspect for me that it really just has to deal with the production of the album. That's probably really what I don't like about it. When I listen to the previous three Goatwhore albums, there seems to be this distinct sort of medieval, esoteric element to the music, and art, too. While these elements are seen lyrically, artistically, and even instrumentally to me, Carving seems to be missing that. While this is the second album produced by Eric Rutan, it has a noticeably different sound from the previous album, A Haunting Curse. And I wrote down, I don't know why, in my in my review when I wrote it down on paper, I wrote down, instead of Goatwhore, somehow I messed up and I wrote Gout Whore. That'd be kind of funny. I always had this thought, like, if I were to make bootleg Goatwhore merch, what would it say? And I think I would probably be like, the AliExpress version would be Gout Whore, you know. Oh, where'd you find that Gout Whore shirt? Oh, eBay. I don't know. Anyway. So, while Goatwhore is loud in general, especially if you see them live, Carving is strangely just loud to me in general. I mean, many of Goatwhore's albums start immediately, like a punch to the face. Carving, of course, but also A Haunting Curse, Blood for the Master, and Constricting Rage for the Merciless are all like this. Carving is more like a power metal oriented album to me, and the guitars are loud, thrashy, and you actually start to see or hear Benjamin's vocal style start to adapt into what I call his medieval Krampus style, and what ended up becoming a departure from the clean spoken type of vocals that was on the first two albums. The black metal moans of despair are completely gone by this album. I mean, truly, the moans that you would have heard from the first album, especially, all of that is completely gone in A Haunting Curse, but by carving out the eyes of God, that's not even by carving out the eyes of God, that clean sort of vocal is like never coming back, if you understand what I mean. The closest to a sort of clean vocal would be in the song To Mourn and Forever Wander Through Forgotten Doorways. To me, that sounds more like Krampus walking and talking to himself than any sort of clean vocal that, of course, was seen on the first two albums. That said, I do like that song, and it's actually one of my favorites from the album. Speaking of favorite songs, there's actually a few that really stick out to me on this album. First would be Provoking the Ritual of Death, which it's really good to me because of the way Sammy like pulls on the strings at times. He's kind of got a little bit of Kundalini, where he can make a riff so tantalizing and, dare I say, even sexy. It's something that I do wish he did more on Goatwhore albums and their songs. The way he bends on the strings like that style of his is something that you also see on the song Silence Marked by the Breaking of Bone, which is on the previous album Haunting Curse, which is actually one of my favorite Goatwhore songs overall. But this same style is the same reason why I love Sonic Excess, that album by Crowbar, because he just knows how to bend the strings. And on Sonic Excess, I mean, that is just all over the album. But back to Carving, another song that I really liked was In Legions, I Am Wars of Death. Another favorite, if you want to call it that, as the song gets really good when it gets to the parts where Sammy starts to scream Rise. It sounds so evil, like they're summoning a storm for Leviathan. The way Sammy plays is like the way that rain will pour down violently at night during a particularly violent storm. This is a style that I find very definitive of this time period for him in general, something very prominent from the albums produced really just during the Rutan years. I would say that there is a distinct sort of power metal, thrash kind of tone or vibe that Sammy seemed to inhibit when they had their albums produced by Eric Rutan. And I'm not sure if that's because of Rutan himself or because the 2010s, granted this album came out in 2009, but in general, this kind of 2010s era just had that sound in metal, if you understand what I mean. To me, I think of that era when I hear albums like this. Another song I really enjoyed was Shadow of a Rising Knife, which is the one that this one stuck out to me the most, actually. It has a cadence lyrically that is like that of A Haunting Curse, and the guitar riffs are really fun and punky. It gets heavier and kind of more death metal-y, and I actually really enjoyed the solos too. Other songs that I liked were The All Destroying, Carving Out the Eyes of God, and of course, I like Apocalyptic Havoc too, though that's pretty much a given considering that they tend to play that song live, and it's a fun song to listen to live too. The more that I listened to the album, the more I realized why I personally didn't care for it that much. In a very strange way, Carving Out the Eyes of God is, this sounds so crazy. Carving is almost too modern for me. The way it's produced is definitely an album that I would say it has Rutan's curse. Rutan's curse is all over this. Even though I know that Eric Rutan is a cool guy and a talented musician, I just don't like the way he produces albums, honestly. His most popular band that he's produced for is, of course, Cannibal Corpse. And just listen to other albums produced by Eric Rutan from that era, such as Kill and Evisceration Plague. They have the same problem. While technically, instrumentally, it's good, these people are talented musicians, to me, everything is modernized and put together on a computer that, at the end of the day, somehow has its authenticity stripped from it. In fact, just randomly, I remember I remember this time period, the early 2010s, where a lot of people had this idea that because music is recorded on a computer, it has less soul or maybe even talent to it. When that's obviously not the case. It comes down to, I mean, how it's recorded or how we use the tools in general. Anyway, a lot of Rutan's resume seems to consist of creating walls of sound that results in this sterile end production. And I know that this will make some people mad, but that's just how this album comes off to me. And especially since I've seen Goatwhore live, having seen them live multiple times, I've really come to know I've really come to know what their performances are like. They always would put on a good show, and many, many of their songs do sound better live than at least what was recorded in the studio. Of course, a lot of that comes with the fact that, such as Carving Out the Eyes of God, that came out in 2009, and, God, crazy to say, but that was almost 20 years ago. Oh, it's 2025. So, of course, in the let's just say even just good 15 years after this album was released, of course, if you were to hear anything played live, it would be, better. Sammy has played the songs or known the songs for 15 years plus. So, anyway. Now, Carving Out the Eyes of God isn't a bad album, but I think that it suffers greatly from the way that it was mastered or produced. It's just really weird to me. It's very, very weird. You mainly hear Ben and Sam's vocals, or at least I do, and Zach's drums came third, and finally, I can barely hear Nathan Bergeron's bass. Personally, I actually liked Nathan's bass playing, and actually I greatly enjoyed him on the previous album, A Haunting Curse. So it's not to me like as if, Nathan was just a sucky bassist. No, I thought he was good. But for whatever reason, you just cannot hear him on this album. Damn near. I'm not sure why his bass is put in the background on this album, even with Zach. I mean, why is even the drums kind of a background thought? To me, all parts of a band are equal. They are the sum of their parts, to quote Johnny Kelly. And I find it especially odd, considering how Sam and Zach have this playing style that really bounces off of each other, especially when you see them live. I kind of just shake my head at whoever made the mixing decisions for this album. To me, it was like as if Goatwhore was put into someone's formula, and that person had more say than the own members of the band for their own album. I bought the album on Bandcamp, though, which does allow for lossless files, and typically, if I can, I will download the albums for any band or musician in the lossless format. Typically, I listen to music in FLAC, and because basically it's not compressed. And so listening to Carving Out the Eyes of God in maybe a lossless format really emphasizes these strange production ideas or strange mixing ideas. I think that because of this, you can really hear just how loud Sammy's guitars are over really every other single member. And I know that many people think of guitars first when it comes to metal music, or probably just any type of music in general. But I just find that the way it's done for this album, uh, it is done in a strange way. It would have been really nice to hear the bass on the album, is basically all I'm saying. Overall, though, I think this is a decent album. It's a good metal album you'd probably expect as a metal album should sound. But to me, it's lacking in what makes something a phenomenal Goatwhore album. I suppose that I know in hindsight how talented these musicians can be. I suppose in my eyes, I know how good it could be. I know how hardworking, talented, dedicated, and determined Benjamin and Sammy are, especially. I wish that this album could have been heavier, but for me, I just really, really like my music heavy in general. I do wish that it was also more esoteric like the ones before it, but I don't hold a grudge against them or anything. I do think it's strange though. I mean, I'm not sure what exactly makes Carving Out the Eyes of God less esoteric. Maybe it's the album art, I don't know. But there's this kind of strange charm or magic, literally, that's kind of missing to the album, unlike what you saw in the previous three. If anything, though, Carving Out the Eyes of God is, or was, I guess, a stepping stone for Goatwhore. It was another chapter in the book that, I mean, it had to be written, right? It what ended up being the next chapter in the book to their careers. And it seems that the next chapter in their lives was an exciting one overall.